Well, getting back to North Korea. So the country is threatening the U.S. with missiles, but the American media is only interested in President Trump's semantics today.
You don't think that the president's comments are at odds with those of the secretaries and other officials?
In the president's remarks and then in the secretary's comments about the president's remarks, saying that it was the kind of language that North Korea would understand.
After the fire and fury language, Senator McCain and others, Republicans and Democrats, have complained that it was, quote, bombastic in Senator Feinstein's view, not helpful.
That was just a piece of it, guys. State Department spokesperson and former Fox News anchor Heather Nauert reminding the media what the real issue is here.
As people look at this, and some consider comments to have been alarming, I would have to go back to this. Let's consider what is alarming. What is alarming: 2 ICBM tests in less than a month, 2 nuclear tests that took place last year. As a matter of fact, when there's an earthquake in China, I get many emails and calls from all of you asking, was it another nuclear test? That is how big of a deal this is, at what is going on. Let me just follow up. Let me finish. Okay, please. Sure. It is a big deal what is going on. It is a concern to the world, not just the United States. Those are alarming actions. They are provocative actions on the part of North Korea.
Okay, retired Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer says the media needs to focus on the real issue at hand, which obviously is North Korea. Good evening, sir.
Hey, Cheryl. Thanks for having me. Good to be on.
Yeah, so, you know, does the media do this a lot? I mean, is it really about semantics over substance? Have you seen this before?
Navel gazing, yes, absolutely. Let me be clear here. Look, President Reagan during the Cold War was criticized for using very harsh language regarding our standing up to the Soviet Union. It was his backbone, Mr. Gorbachev, tear this wall down. Things like that were recommended against. The media went crazy back then, never looking at the fact that you did have a Soviet Union was very aggressive. Now we see the same thing. We have seen since 1994, 21 October 94, when President Clinton first signed an agreement to so-called denuclearize North Korea. We have seen appeasement after appeasement, which has resulted in very provocative establishment of nuclear weapons, which we've seen tested, ballistic missile technology, which we've seen tested. And now, according to the Defense Intelligence Agency, they have the ability to put that together, the Reese's Cup moment. So, of course, the focus should be on the threat and what do we do to resolve this issue and protect our allies and the American people, to include Hawaii and Alaska, not the language or the words used by the president to tell the leader of North Korea, you need to back off.
Well, I want to ask you about that, about the appropriate response here. I know you've got an opinion about that, but just real quick on the media, you've got a lot of websites, liberal websites, like Think Progress, that are warning that military figures are taking over President Trump's administration. I'm curious what you think about that. But with North Korea, Paris, fighting ISIS, you know, the Middle East. Yeah. I mean, is there no better time than now to have generals on your team, like, I don't know, your new chief of staff, Mr. Kelly? I mean, it would make sense to me.
Well, look, I think there's 2 things that have been a problem: leaks and chaos. Look, on the leak thing, I think General Kelly is no better than General Kelly to start getting to the bottom of that. Frankly, I think that those at the White House already have not done a good job. I think he'll bring order to that. A military man generally does, to the point of being a military man. Look, General Eisenhower was a good president. I think a number of presidents have had military experience. I think bringing military folks, senior leaders who are experienced and effective, to the picture is a good thing. Look, you wouldn't want to hire a general who got fired for failure. What you're doing here, what he's doing here, is bringing in men who have been successful in their careers and being effective and accomplishing things. So I think it's far more important to accomplish things and do big things to meet his agenda, rather than worrying about the opinion of the left.
And he does, and we should say that the president appears to really value the leadership and the guidance and the advice that he gets, not just from Kelly, but from Mattis and from Tillerson as well, who actually made a lot of, I would say, calming statements when he was overseas. Really, and I do want to ask you about the appropriate response here, because, you know, I think, especially as for me as a kid growing up in the Cold War, you always think of us as the top dog nuclear power. But, you know, there were reports that the U.S. was still using floppy disks to run the nuclear program.
Good program. Good point.
Yeah, and then the president, he did respond to this. He said, my first order as president was to renovate and modernize the nuclear arsenal. You know, it's now far stronger, more powerful than ever before. Hopefully we never have to use this power, but there will never be a time that we are not the most powerful nation in the world. I mean, do you think that this language, I'm doing the semantic question, but the language is appropriate in what the president's saying?
Well, two things. Look, the president's comments are aspirational. We don't have a modernized force. I mean, look, how many people do you know, Cheryl, that drives a 79 Ford Pinto? Nobody. But that's the technology we're talking about here. So, yes, he's got to modernize. But the thing he's brought back is the concept of use. That is to say that many believe that President Obama would not use nuclear weapons no matter what. And that basically destroyed the deterrent capability we had. President Trump has brought that back. He's made it very clear we will use nuclear weapons, and our technology does work. That's why they fired off the Minuteman III from last week on the West Coast. So I think he's reestablished the primacy of our nuclear deterrent program. But I think next year the debate's going to become about things like the reliable replacement warhead. Should we field things like SDI, Brilliant Pebbles, which is a space-based anti-missile system? All that's coming, but I do believe President Trump will lead that charge and get things modernized.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, you know, we have to run, but I have to say, Tony, I mean, it's amazing to me that here we are talking about, you know, weaponry that was first developed by us during World War II. So it's no surprise that Kim Jong-un has the capabilities. I think the surprise is that we maybe, thank you, President Obama, aren't totally ready for this, you know, from a technology. It's hard to believe it really is. I don't know.
Well, keep in mind the Iranian deal helped fund and fuel the North Koreans' rush forward. So remember, it's all linked.